Hello there. Welcome. Thanks for joining me. Uh, well, here we are in the second week of January, and the UK has now successfully left the EU. Um, Over the past couple of years, I have been asked on a number of occasions to say what I thought would happen after Brexit, to write something on it. And I always declined because, frankly, I didn't have a clue. Um, and now it has happened. I think things are becoming a little more clear, although not entirely as yet. Um, I'd better say up front that I was never a fan of this project. I thought, having thought carefully about it 4.5 years ago now, that we had more to lose as a country by leaving the EU than we had to gain, not being sold on vague ideas of taking sovereignty back and so on. I think also it's amusing to see some on the right saying that Margaret Thatcher would be proud of this. She was a fervent pro-EU campaigner and worked very hard to get the UK what she saw as the best deal possible. Something that unfortunately David Cameron didn't have the cojones, I think, to do. These Brexiteers are also claiming the support of Winston Churchill, bless him, although he's been dead for a while, and how proud he would be, which shows an absolute lack of knowledge of history, because Winston Churchill, it was actually in a speech in Zurich, I think, in 1946, proposed the idea of a United States of Europe, and said that that should be based on a new partnership between France and Germany, which it did begin as, if you remember, the European Iron, Coal and Steel Community, which involved France, Germany and the Benelux countries to start with, and that evolved over time into the European Economic Community and then the European Union. But anyway, so here we are. And what have we learned? Well, we've learned that things are going to get more expensive. I noticed today a report saying that road freight from the UK to EU is now 39% more expensive than it was 2 weeks ago. And that's not surprising. There are extra layers of bureaucracy needed, customs formalities and so on, phytosanitary declarations and all the rest of it. There are difficulties in getting hold of some products, and one of the reasons for that, I understand, is possibly, I'm not going to say it was ill thought out, but I think the policy put in place by Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs on VAT on goods from the EU has had the impact of making it very difficult for EU-based retailers and manufacturers to sell to individual customers in the UK without going through a whole number of hoops. I did see a Dutch bicycle equipment supplier saying it was absolutely insane, and that if other countries had done the same thing around the world, then he would have to register for VAT in 165 different countries, which is clearly not viable. Other impacts, obviously there's an issue in sending food from the UK to the EU, as a number of truck drivers have discovered by having their sandwiches confiscated on arrival in the Netherlands. There's also some little details. I think there have been other food supplies haven't really been affected, but there was a report that a trade, quite an extensive trade actually, I think between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, in seed potatoes had to be interrupted because seed potatoes, those that are meant to be planted to seed new potatoes, didn't fall under the exemption for food. And clearly the whole business of the Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland border is a fudge, and we now have what our Prime Minister promised would never happen, basically a soft border in the middle of the Irish Sea. So I'm not surprised at some of this. I think our government and the two preceding governments really have been very big on grand gestures and big announcements, but very weak on detail. And it is the detail that's providing problems for industry. There are, for instance, we now have in the chemical sector, we now have a UK version of REACH. Other places have got one. Korea's got one. REACH. Turkey's got its own REACH. And now there's a UK REACH. The government, I think, has expressed some surprise that UK-based chemical companies no longer have access to the information that they put on the EU, the original REACH database, as administered by the European Chemicals Agency, an agency of the European Union to which the UK no longer belongs, and so they can't. And that surprise is in itself surprising, because I know the chemical industry and distributors had raised this issue repeatedly with government over the past 3 or 4 years. I understand that about 80% of REACH registrations by UK companies have now been transferred or replicated to the UK system. But considering that we've had 4.5 years to get used to the idea, I think the lack of detail has been a problem for everybody involved in international trade. And that includes issues around customs formalities. It was surprising, over the last 2 years to see the government saying we'll invest in more ships for cross-channel trade to help ease the blockage. Well, that really wasn't what was needed. What was needed was more customs officials and a lot more trained customs people for companies that are involved in trade between the UK and EU. We will get used to it, I dare say. So far, like I said, there hasn't been any great evidence of food shortages, despite some alarming photos on Twitter. I have a food delivery coming this afternoon, and the only thing they couldn't find were a particular brand of frozen chips that I particularly like. Marks and Spencer's, one of the big UK food retailers, has warned that the price of Percy pigs will go up if they can get them at all. For those of you who don't know them, these are a particular little sweet treat that is manufactured in Germany, and so there will be VAT issues, I believe. There you go. So, like I say, the impact not so huge on a lot of people at the moment. The picture's clouded, of course, by COVID restrictions. We're all in lockdown in the UK. We can apparently cycle 7 miles now. I've been on a bike in a while, and it's far too dangerous to ride a bicycle on the roads around here, although there isn't as much traffic as normal. So that's good. So we shall see. I think, there's going to be a process of getting used to it on both sides of the divide. And there we go. And I hope those of you who voted for it are happy with what you've got, which clearly doesn't include British expats living in Spain, judging by the number of them coming back. That's it for this week. Next week, I may well return to the topic of container ship fires, partly because tomorrow morning, it's an early start for me, there's an 8:30 webinar hosted by TT Club and I think it's the UK P&I Club, Forgive me if it's wrong, on the subject. I shall be reporting on that, and I dare say I shall have something prepared to go in the February issue of HCB. Meanwhile, the January issue of HCB is now available online. Go take a look at that. There's some interesting stuff in there. Thanks for watching. Nice to see you, and I'll be back next week. Bye for now.